Finally, we get to the Rawdogging. It is an article by Kate Lindsay, and it's why men are raw-dogging flights. And basically, this is an unpleasant verb. There's a picture here of Idris Elba on the show that Pablo likes, Hijack, which is basically he's very restless once they take the phone away from him, because what do you do when you're addicted to the phone and you're on one of these long flights? I'm about to fly for 24 hours here, and I don't believe that I have the strength, stamina, the will to do what raw-dogging is represented by here, which is to just look at the map the entire time you're flying, to not be on the internet, not be connected to anything, not interact with others, just go into some sort of trance where you just bore yourself for 24 hours as a matter of will. I could not do this. I find myself all the time reaching for my phone, reaching for other things, other stimuli, but I can see when I read some about it how it could be meditative to some. If you can find yourself in some trance of serenity where you could do breathing exercises or something else to be 100% present instead of, doing what I do, which is trying to figure out how to play the Tetris with my remote control. I don't think that that's the best use of time, but you guys, neither one of you can imagine yourselves doing something like this, right? On a long flight, 7 hours, no reading, no connection to anything.
So I was in Europe, I was in France last week, back and forth, about, 7 hours or so. And the level of anger that I felt when the Wi-Fi wasn't working was Mina Googling license plate levels of just fury. I hate this idea. I do not relate to it, except, Mina, in the aspirational sense, which is that this is mostly a story, if we're translating this really, about how desperate people actually are to be off their phones. And they're looking for some sort of excuse or this framework in which maybe now I can be the person that I cannot be when I'm left to my own literal devices on the ground. They're like, what if I try this radical experiment of, revisiting what it's like to have an imagination? That feels like what the story is about.
Yeah, it's the kind of story that inevitably inspires a lot of people talking about how it's such a sad commentary on modern existence that no one can even imagine going 7 hours without their phone, as they tweet it out on their devices to brag about how evolved or enlightened they are as not being people who aren't addicted to the internet. It's also a story that, by the way, went viral just because people like to say raw-dogging. I just want to say that.
Yeah, I don't think
not
Dan,
be a thing if not for the word raw-dogging.
I don't know if Dan has ever heard that term before. I believe he's using it in a way that is very dangerous in the future.
I have heard yes, I do know what that phrase means. I don't know why you would think, why?
Why are you defending that you know this? I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't know what. This is a weird hill for Dan to defend.
I was being sarcastic, but there is something to it. I, like you, like everybody, have had moments where I've been disgusted with certainly my addiction to my phone, but I would say worried about my reduced attention span generally. That is something that bothers me. I think it is something that should bother pretty much everybody. And like you said, Pablo, this story is sort of really a prism to consider that more than it is a starting point for a discussion on whether or not any of us are capable of doing this on a plane. And we can talk about that. I find that for me, it is a good exercise to force, and I do have to force myself, which is what's being described here, to be away from not just the phone, but the internet for X period of time, especially if I want to think through something or have, or be creative. When I was a writer, actually, I loved flights or Amtraks without Wi-Fi, because it would honestly, I would be one of the very few places where I found myself doing my best writing and most likely to get something done for exactly this reason. That's very different from what's being described here, but I think the thrust of it is the same, which is because we have so much distraction at our fingertips all the time, it does render us incapable of certain types of thought and mental exploration.
Dan, we're seeing products all of the time now being sold, by the way, sometimes in sponsored links, elevated to the top of Google search results, where it's like, hey, what we're selling now is effectively a digital camera where you can't see the photos that you're taking, so that you have to sort of like almost go back to the analog world of you'll find them when they get developed later. I'm seeing people buy phones that don't have color, where they're black and white, almost like brick phone, I think it's called, or something like that, where it's like all you could do is text on it. I'm seeing products like, hey, here's basically a typewriter, where it's like all you can do is type and see the words, and there's nothing else on the screen. And it all feels like a way of us trying to sell ourselves what used to be the case, because the pendulum finally feels like it's swinging. But as a former writer, all of us qualify as that. I do relate to how sometimes my brain being left alone was the only way that I would get inspiration. Like, what an asshole thing I'm about to say, but like sometimes the muse only visits you when, you're sort of unoccupied.
It is an asshole thing to say, but the part of this that I find speaks to me and what Mina is saying is that all three of us, as you said, used to be writers. All three of us have forsaken that in search of the cotton candy that gives us an assortment of fulfillments now. But all three of us have lives that are sprinting on a treadmill on the content machine, because this is what ESPN has birthed of writers, is three people who spend a lot of time on this particular treadmill making things. And I just realized with what Mina said that on Wednesday, Juneteenth was a Wednesday, and I had it off in the middle of the week, which I cannot remember when I had a day off. And the number of times that I had the thought, oh my God, I have time to think. I have not had time to think. It was a revelation not but a couple of weeks ago, Mina, of what it is that you're articulating, which is if you slow it down for a second and you remove the distractions, because I've tried all sorts of stuff, breath work, meditation, stuff to stop the spinning fishing reel that just sends wire out to sea all the time. And it was in having a day off, a national holiday forced upon me, that I noticed what it is that you're talking about. And it's something I've lost from writing, because I wrote 4 days a week. There were 3 days to think. That's gone. ESPN makes you work 300 shows a week, or 300 shows a year that feel like 300 shows a week. You guys have all lived in this space. I'm guessing that you have less time to think than you've ever had, because you have to be talking. And there's no time to think when you're talking all the time.
I don't have less time to think because I'm on TV for an hour a day. I have less time to think because I'm addicted to the internet. I am not going to pretend like, which I think is true of probably a lot of the listeners, probably just a facet of modern life. I don't think this is an extreme example, the 7-hour plus flight without the internet, but I do think there is great mental utility into baking time into your day, even if it's 10-minute walk with your dog or whatever, where you are disconnected from anything and your brain has to go in certain directions. I think I've found that my creativity and problem solving is stunted when I don't bake any time like that into my day.
I feel like we're pretty close to a world where there's going to be some tech startup that is literally just trying to sell us our imagination back to us. Where it's like, imagine I were to tell you, you can envision any pornographic situation that you wanted. Imagine you could have the life that you dreamed if you only had the power to close your eyes and dream.
I think it's weird. It's weird, Mina, that he made it pornographic. No? Weird,
I know.
Weird that he made it pornographic.
Honestly, I'm just shocked he didn't say Rawdogging the Muse.